Okay, in this video I'm going to show how to get GemRB up and running on a Raspberry Pi. I'm using RetroPie 3.8.1 and I'm using a Raspberry Pi 3. And for those of you who don't know, GemRB is like an open source version of BioWare's Infinity engine. So it's geared to support Baldurs Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment, and it runs them really well. It's quite well supported, currently developed, and it's cross-platform as well. So it runs on other systems besides a Pi. And the good thing is that you don't need a specific version to run on the Pi of Baldurs Gate, for example. You can just, if you've bought the Windows version, you can grab those data files and copy them across. This open source version is quite happy, of GemRB is quite happy to process those files, so you don't need to look for a specific version. Okay, now I had a message from a user on the YouTube channel called Frank, and he said that whilst there is some info about GemRB and how it works, there's sometimes some missing steps and some questions that need answering just to make sure that it works as smoothly as it could. So I've put a video together here that will hopefully help a lot of people, because obviously the whole Baldurs Gate, Icewind Dale, it's got a really good following. They're about, I don't know, about 15 plus years old, but they're still really popular games and really solid as well. I've given them a few goes and they still hold up really well. And it's a really good emulator. Now it doesn't ship as standard in the RetroPie build, or rather it's not installed as standard, but it's really easy to go through the steps to install that, just the same process that you'll do for any emulator that isn't already up and running. So I'll run through those steps, the configuration settings, and as always check out the description in the YouTube video, because I'll put extra details about more documentation and obviously a link to the wiki, which should help. But yeah, let's run through and install that. Now you can do this using the emulation station interface here. If you scroll across, you can go into the RetroPie menu and you can run the RetroPie setup and install that. Now for whatever reason, maybe it's a combination of my video capture, it doesn't love doing this from the emulation station menu. I'm just going to do it from the command line, but it's exactly the same, so you can run it from here or the command line and you'll get the same interface. It's just going to go a bit smoother. For some reason when I try it like this, it almost sort of hangs at the end and it doesn't look good on the video. But anyway, if I quit out of this with pressing start, quit and quit emulation station, what I'm going to do now is run that option that I was just on a moment ago, just manually. So to do that, if I change the directory to RetroPie, to the RetroPie setup, and I'm going to run the setup script. Now, as I said, I am using RetroPie 3.8.1, and recently, or currently, it's about the end of June 2016, there's about to be a new sort of interface for this menu system, and I can update that now. So hopefully it's slightly future-proof the video if I use the updated version. And to do that, I'll go down to this option here, update the RetroPie setup script. And obviously to do this you do need an internet connection, so make sure your Pi is connected and hit that. And it only take a moment to update the settings there. There we go. Okay, so that's fetched the latest version. Now you'll see on the screen the menu system's changed slightly. You've got sort of fewer options at the top level. And what we're going to do is install GemRB. So under the Manage Packages section, then if you go down to Manage Optional Packages, and in this list you should find GemRB. Obviously there are a lot to choose from. It's a lot ship with all the possibility to install emulators. There's a big range, so plenty more videos for me to make. Yeah, okay. GemRB, I think I've gone too far, haven't I? There we go. Okay, GemRB, select that, and you can see next to it there's not a brackets installed marker, so you know it's not installed at the moment. So hit OK, and you get the option to download the precompiled binaries or compile it from source, but I'll just do the binary option. That should be fine, and it should be a bit quicker as well. It'll take maybe 2 minutes or so. Now like I say, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 3, and in that I've got connected obviously a network connection to download this, a keyboard, mouse and joypad. Now for this type of game, Baldurs Gate, obviously you're really going to want a mouse, so you need to sort one of those out. And I've tried a couple of different ones. I've only got some really old sort of spare ones to hand, so it was a bit clunky sort of scrolling across, but I think that's probably configurable with the settings, or maybe try a different type of mouse. But anyway, experiment with that. Okay, so you can see it downloading a lot there and installing it. Now this is where it did stop on the emulation station install as well, but I'll give it a second and just see if it scrolls past that. Okay, so I hit Control C just to drop out of that that view, and it seems to have installed fine, but for whatever reason it didn't flip back to the menu. Now that might just be a bit of a one-off, or maybe you experienced that as well, but at that point where it just everything's stopped on the screen, the status stopped scrolling, it's been like that for a while, I'd be pretty confident it's finished without issue. But just to double check, we can go back in and revisit that. So at the command prompt or in emulation station, and we'll just rerun that command with sudo space full stop / retropie _setup.sh. Go back into the menu system, and we've got manage packages, manage optional packages, and you'll see if we scroll down where GemRB is, it's got brackets installed by it. Now just whilst I'm here, I'm going to see if I can install over the top of it, just see what happens. But no need to do this, and I probably wouldn't suggest it either. But well, they're saying that this would, like the menu option says, it would just update it if there's a newer version. Yeah, it seems to do the same thing again, just sort of waits on that line. But I wouldn't worry about that. I'm pretty sure it's completed okay. So I'll hit Control C there. And now what we'll do, we'll just go and have a look at where it's installed, so you can see the configuration paths. Now obviously all of this is optional, you don't have to do a lot of this looking at the configuration files, but I'm doing it so that you can see where it's installed and where you'll need to copy files to, but a lot of it will be pretty intuitive anyway. So the first thing we'll look at is where the Rom folder is. Whilst it's not strictly a Rom folder for this purpose, it's still the place you need to put your data files and your game files. So to do that, we can go to the home directory, different keyboard, don't know where that is, there it is. Okay, so if we look at RetroPie ROMs, if you type pwd you can see where that is, but you might well usually access this by maybe a Samba share or an FTP, using an FTP client, but that's the path. So we've got HomePie, RetroPie ROMs. Now in there, because this is GemRB is a port really of BioWare's Infinity engine, you find it in ports, which is quite logical. It did throw me earlier when I couldn't find it, but that was because I wasn't really thinking. But yeah, so you change to ports, and in ports you can now see that you've got in green there, you've got the .sh, so the shell scripts that run the game. In there they've basically just got the command to run the game. So that's it. I'll open one quickly just so you can see, but it's not particularly interesting. So if we run, in this example, I'm going to do Baldurs Gate 2. So Baldurs Gate 2. And often, if you're not sure, I'm hitting tab to autocomplete because it's a lot easier, quicker, more accurate quite often. So Nano is the text editor. So if I edit that file, you can see at the top there, all it does is run the sort of RetroPie main engine, if you like, the run command, and it processes Baldurs Gate, and I'll show you where that looks in a moment, but you don't need to change that, edit that, or even know about it really, it's just there. So we quit that, Control X, okay. Now in that directory we've got folders, and that's where we're going to put the data files. So in my example I'm going to choose Baldurs 2 because I'm going to run Baldurs Gate 2. And this directory here, oh, hang on, I typed that wrong. There we go. So there's nothing in there whatsoever at the moment, and that's because that's where we're going to put our files. If you type pwd, that's the full directory for Baldurs Gate 2 data files. And as I said earlier, all you've got to do is copy across your existing files from the game that you own anyway. So in Baldurs Gate 2, I'm just going to copy across the files and the folders that exist into this folder here. And to begin with, when I tried this a few days ago, I copied the files that I thought were useful, but it turns out most of them are needed, so you can almost copy the entire directory across. For the files that aren't needed, it's not going to reference them anyway, so the easiest way might simply be to copy the entire directory structure across. I'm going to do that now in the background. It's about, in this installation, about 2 gig or so. So obviously it'll take however long that takes you to transfer those files across. And then we'll look at the structure and I'll point out a couple of the directories and paths. But that's where the data files go, in that folder there. So I'll do that now and then we'll have a look at the list. Okay, now I've copied across the Baldurs Gate data files, or the Baldurs Gate 2 data files, and that took about 5 minutes or so. You can do it in whatever method you usually choose to copy files across, maybe Samba shares, whatever. I use an FTP client. That's done now. In this directory, if we list it, we can see, and I'll put -lh just to get a bit more detail there. You can see I've got those folders shown: characters, data, music, override, portrait, scripts and sounds. And the bulk of all of the information that comes across there is all in the data folder. And I know there's been a few questions about what subdirectory should that data element be in, but you can see there at the bottom, the directory I'm putting this directory structure in is ends in ports Baldurs 2. And if we go into the data folder, you can also see that there's another data folder inside that. It's capitalized with the D there. So I haven't just copied that subfolder in, I've copied the top level data folder in with those files there. And that's the structure to follow. So if we go back a directory, you'll also see, besides the folders that are copied there, there are 3 files. Now, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think the language.txt is required, but I've copied it across anyway. The dialogue.tlk, I'm pretty sure that's effectively like the subtitles that pop up on the screen when the characters talk, so you need that one. And no pun intended, but that .key file is key to the whole game running. If you don't have that, it's not going to run properly at all. So that file must be there, I know that. And I think that's everything. You don't need any other files, but then saying that's everything, that's pretty much everything I had in the install file anyway. The only things I haven't copied across are, excuse me, are things like Windows executable files that obviously aren't going to be needed to run this. But like I say, if you're not sure, you can just copy the whole lot wholesale across and you'll probably be fine. So that's where you're copying files, and in my case this is about 2.5 gigs, something like that. Okay, so that's the ROM folder if you like, and now we'll look at the configuration files. So along with everything else, if you change, they're all in the same place. So if you change directory to RetroPie and configs, and you'll see in here, again, we go into the ports directory. So in there, oh, if I type that right, we've got a similar layout, and we're talking about Baldurs Gate 2, so I'll go into the Baldurs Gate 2 section. And these 2 files were created when we installed GemRB. First, we'll quickly look at the emulators one, which is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. This is what runs when, or gets run when you run the Baldurs Gate 2.sh that we saw earlier. It basically triggers this, and in here you can see it's running GemRB, that's the first part, and -c is the config file, so it's saying run GemRB with this config file, and that's the path where we are now. So that's the file that we'll look at now. That basically just says emulator run this file. So now in that directory we can read the config file. There we go. Now you can get more config settings by looking at the links in the description. You can add in some other elements that you might want to include, but that's all you need. I haven't changed mine, I've left mine default. This is completely default, and what I've found, and we'll look at in a minute, is if you look at log files when you run a GemRB based game like Baldurs Gate 2, the log files are really quite detailed and useful. They pointed out quite quickly where some errors might be when I was running it, so it's quite quick and easy to fix. And you can see down the bottom there, it's got some path information. Now, for example, if you didn't have, say, the sounds directory, the log file would say, I can't find the sounds directory, but when I add it, I don't have to say here, this is where the sounds directory is. It's like, it's expecting it effectively where we put it, so you don't have to specify it again. It looks in the default place, it's there. So you don't need to add those paths for those other folders here. It's quite happy to look for them. But one thing I think you do need to add here, or it certainly helped reduce the errors when I was trying, is the CD line. So like I was saying earlier, Baldurs Gate 2, I think it came on 6 CDs originally, and the config of GemRB kind of wants to know where those 6 CDs are. But it doesn't matter if you've got a newer distribution of the game and they all happen to be in the same directory. But it does seem to help by specifying that that's where they are. So you can see CD2, same path. So I'm going to add that in now. It's probably going to look pretty boring on the video, so you might want to skip as I type, skip forward as I type. So CD2. This would obviously be much easier if I wasn't doing it on the TV, but I'm sure there's probably a shortcut key for copy as well, but I don't know what it is. And you can't auto-complete when you're editing a file, so that's not going to be very quick. There you go, exciting stuff. Right, like I say, I'm not sure that that's definitely required, but I know without it, at the very least, the log files complain a bit that they can't find that location. So I put it in just for completion, really. Like I say, you can put some other tweaks in there and you can experiment with how that changes the game, but I found the defaults work pretty well. And it's worth just, I don't know, getting to grips with running the game and making sure it works without going too heavy on the config. And you can always come back to this. But yeah, there are a few different options that you can change to make that work. A key one at the top, again, I wouldn't suggest changing any of this. Game type BG2. This GemRB is really geared to support those at least 5 games. You've got Baldurs Gate 1, 2, Icewind Dale 1, 2, Planescape, Torment. And that's driven by these letters up here. That's what GemRB is going to be expecting to run in this when this one gets kicked off. Anyway, that's the change I'm going to make. So Control X there, save that, yes, done. Okay, and we'll look really quickly at the emulator. Again, this is not required to know, use, or do anything with, but just so you know where it is. If we go back a couple of directories here, and so we're OPT RetroPie or Opt RetroPie, and if we go to the, I think it's ports directory, and in there we've got GemRB, now it's installed, and this is where the actual emulator lives, so the binary. You'll see that in the binary folder, but if we go into the share folder, I think share folder and then GemRB, I think it is again, and unhardcoded. And then I think in this directory, RetroPie ports GemRB. Oh, hang on. Unhardcoded. We're doing Baldurs Gate 2, so go in that folder. And in here, it's got a GemRB file list. Hang on. There, GemRB ini. There are some configuration files like that GemRB ini that get read if others don't exist, but you can see this more clearly almost if you look at the log files that are generated when you run the game. like I say, you don't need to edit anything in here, but it's worth knowing that sometimes it will look in there if it can't find particular files. But I won't worry about it unless you're getting oddities. Ignore this. Right. Now the other place that's really useful, not just for GemRB but for anything, is the Temp Directory, which is here. So there's not really anything in there at the moment. I haven't run anything. If you run a game, if you look in this folder, you'll see a file called runcommand.log. And if there's ever any issues running a game, or you want to see some more information, if you edit that run command, so it'd just be nano runcommand.log like that, it'll open and you can read that file, and it gives you really useful information about what the game is trying to do when it's starting up. So if you do get any issues running GemRB based stuff, have a look in this folder for the run command and see what sort of errors or warnings might be shown, and it just helps narrow down what the problem was. So for example, when I first tried this, I copied a few folders across from my Baldurs Gate 2 install, but I didn't copy across, I think maybe scripts. And then I looked in this file and it basically said, warning, can't find scripts folder. So I thought, oh, obviously wants it, copied it across, and it's quite happy. So it's really useful for debugging. You can check that out. And that's about it really from the back end. So really, once you've installed GemRB, it's simply copy across all your files into that Baldurs Gate 2 or whichever game you're doing folder under ports, which is under the ROMs folder, and separately look at the configuration file in the configs directory, and you can add the extra paths in if you want. I'm doing Baldurs Gate 2 as an example, and I saw that it wanted those extra CD references. The game you're using might not, but you can find out by running it and looking at this log file that's produced here. So it's quite easy to see, should I bother editing that configuration file at all. Hopefully that should help you out enough to get up and running. It shouldn't be any more than that. That would be the most you need to tweak really. Okay, now we've done that, you can go back to Emulation Station and run the game. So here we go, Emulation Station, and I've got a mouse plugged in somewhere. Okay, so with my joypad, if we go into the ports directory, because that's where it's filed, and here we can see the result of those files in green, the end.sh, so Baldurs Gate 2, that will run GemRB, pass it the config file, which will look in the directory, and hopefully it'll run. So I'll run through this, and you should see it kick in and start playing the game. Certainly successful so far, and what we should see is that main menu comes up in a minute. There we go. Now what I'm really not sure about at the moment is maybe how to tweak the video output. I mean, we can see in the config file we can specify the pixels height and width, or rather the resolution height and width I guess, but not anything like I don't know, shaders or tweaks to make it sharper. But I would say, certainly on my screen, my TV that I'm looking at now, that's pretty clear, sharp, and it's a PC game anyway, so typically it would be played on a monitor, and it looks good. I don't have any problem with that, and it's full screen. Obviously it's 4:3 ratio, so you've got black bars, but that's to be expected. But no, it looks pretty good to me. Okay, so let's start trying to play this and make sure that it works properly.
child of Baal has awoken. It is time for more experiments. The pain will only be passing. You should survive the process. Interesting. You have much untapped power. Do you even realize your potential?
More intruders have entered the complex, Master.
They act sooner than we had anticipated. No matter, they will only prove a slight delay.
Okay, there you go. You can see that it's quite happy to kick in, run really easy. Runs well, doesn't seem sluggish. There is an option in the config file to show the frames per second to see what you're getting, but it looks pretty playable. I'll click around here and see if we can control it a bit more. I gave this a go. I'm not looking on what I'm clicking, I just know that this will get me out of here. Okay, so now you can control the characters. It's quite responsive, it's not really feeling that sluggish. The screen scroll maybe is a little slower than I'd expect, but it doesn't seem to be an issue. And I have read that people are quite happy with the performance of Baldurs Gate 1, saying that Baldurs Gate 2 takes a bit more processing power. This is running on a Pi 3, but I'd say it's completely playable. Right, you can see the screen refreshing here quite quickly. How do you cancel? Cancel. Oh. Save success. Okay. Maps. Don't know what that one is. Journal. I think that one's save, obviously, so you can save your game as well. You can. I don't think the graphics options are that tweakable, really. Color depth of 32 anyway. But you can obviously play around with those. Let's return to game. There we go. Continue. End dialogue, yes.
Den of stinking evil. Cover your nose, boo. We will leave no crevice untouched.
Move. Okay.
Quickly, we must get out of here before whoever did this.
A lot of talking in this game.
I swear, traveling with you is never dull.
Okay. I know we can get this door here. Yeah, it seems quick scrolling sort of in the individual screen, but when you move the screen it feels a little bit slow there, but that might just be me. Anyway, that's how easy it is to get up and running. Not that bad at all, but obviously you do need to know the sort of path, the right place to put the files, and maybe you can tweak the configs if you want to, but there's not really much need. As you saw, the only thing I did was refer to a few more CD locations in this case. And then you get up and running with Baldurs Gate, Icewind Dale, and Planescape. So give it a go. If you've got any issues, drop me a comment on the YouTube channels and I'll try to help out. Thanks for watching.